Hello and welcome back to the podcast where we talk about operating and the art of visual storytelling. I am Dave Commodities, your host, and something a little bit different today. Not completely different, but somewhat different, sort of different. I don't know. We'll see. Um, I actually am going to be talking to Liza Bambenek, who I did a really great podcast with. I don't know, a while ago. And I will probably actually move up in the rotation, so it's just before this. So one will be right after the other. But the reason that I wanted to talk to Liza is Liza was a focus puller for a while and really, really top notch focus puller who I was lucky enough to work with. And just recently made the jump to operating. And so, actually, when we did that first podcast, it was before she made the jump to operating. And we sort of talked about what she thought it was going to be like. And now that she's got a couple shows under her belt, I said, hey, let's get back together and sort of see what it was actually like and what the deal is. So, Liza, thanks for letting me subject you to more questions.
Thanks for having me.
Good to
Hello,
see you.
hello.
We're over the internet. For anybody listening. So you got two shows under your belt as an operator, huh?
I
Um,
do.
so uh, how'd it go? I mean, what was like the big jump for you or whatever? I don't know. What'd you think of it?
I loved it. I think it went well.
Yeah.
I remained hired on both jobs I was on.
This is a good
So
sign.
at least,
Okay.
in the most basic of ways, I think it was a success. Um, Always something to learn, always making mistakes still. Um, but I would say the first show was sort of almost a boot camp. There was a both of my DPs were very uh they were aware that it was my first job and took a chance on me regardless, and
Yeah.
both were very encouraging and, um, really kinda made it possible for that to be a learning experience and not like a horrible crushing experience,
And
and
had you assisted for them or one of them
I
anyway
actually
before?
hadn't know it was,
Really?
Alan
Oh, wow.
Clavijo and Anna Amortigui, and,
Mhm.
it ended up being the last season of a show that got canceled after that, but so
Okay.
it was also, like, season 4 of a show. I knew it it wasn't terribly high pressure because of that. It
Yeah.
was incredibly friendly people reaching out to me to do it, and it was a crew of assistants that I knew really well. So that was really helpful, and of course, most of the crew I had worked with before as well, so a lot of, like, the typical kinda first day jitters things weren't there that would have been there, so I felt really fortunate to have
That's cool.
the film community that I've been existing in for a while. Um,
Was this a show that you had also pulled focus on at
no,
all?
I'd never worked on it, which
So you
was
had no connection to the show?
no, not at all.
Wow. Oh, wow.
I had some very kind friends of mine put my name in a hat, and it worked out. So
Wow.
I ended up watching 3 seasons of a TV show very quickly and trying to get the gist,
Yeah,
and then, yeah, and then our A operator, Brian Nordheim, he
great guy.
we met for, a beer just, like, the night before we started shooting, and I was just like, he didn't I we hadn't met before, and I was just like, "Yo, this is my first full-time job," and he's clearly a seasoned professional of 30 years, and he was absolutely excited and wide-eyed and kind and like, "Oh, this is great," and what blah, 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 and just, tossed out a few, you know, bits of advice and things like that, but otherwise was just like, "Let's talk about the rest of life," and da da da
That's great.
da, and da da da, and so it was just he put me at ease as well really quickly. So,
Put
I
you at
think
ease just from a point of view of not of you saying, "Hey, this is my first time," and him going, huh?"
no, his react well, that was what I thought his reaction
That's what
may
I'm
be,
saying.
but
Yeah.
instead it was, "That's so great. Oh, this is so exciting," and, like,
Oh, that's
and
great.
I was just sort of blown away by his generosity and kindness,
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, we spent the next 4 months, I think, hammering it out pretty well together. A good
that's
mixture of
great.
sort of his seasonedness and
Yeah.
and me being able to ask him questions and also just watching him, sitting back and watching him, and then, both Alan and Anna I was basically just I think the best part of that first job was that I was able to drop all recognizable, like, I don't wanna say ego, but something like that. Like, I was just like, "I'm a beginner. I know nothing. And so therefore, any comments, any feedback is like, I can't take it any way other than this is here to like help you get better. So I feel like in some miraculous way I had a pretty decent attitude about being a beginner and being not great potentially, and I think that was really helpful actually, just to be really open, and somebody would give me some feedback and I'd be like, "Okay, great." And it wouldn't crush me. And it was which I think in other versions of my career, I think feedback has sometimes been a little crushing. And
I
I
think
and I'm
to
and I'm
all of
not
us,
yeah, and
right?
I'm not saying
Yeah,
feedback in didn't wasn't ever crushing or whatever, but I was able to just take a note and be like, "Okay, great. Yes, let me do that. Totally." Like I'm absolutely like a sponge at this moment. So I
that's
think
great.
that was, like I said, sort of the welcoming environment, familiar faces, um, and just feeling supported was massive.
So
And
do you think well, the welcoming environment that he obviously, I mean, that was very specific that you mentioned, but it sounds like there was a larger, like, sort of everybody was understood and wants you to succeed. Do you think that that almost like mentally allows you to go, okay, I hope I'm not gonna fail and I won't fail, but if I do on some level, it's gonna be okay. So like it takes some pressure off of you knowing you're not gonna have to go in and be expected to be perfect from the minute you get there?
I think it was nice to have a crew of people who probably 90% of the people there knew me and knew where I'd come from and knew the kind of work that I had done in other capacities for the last 25 years. I
Yeah.
mean, this community was a smaller potential year span of that, but um and I also was kind of like, I don't know, some sort of a day by day thing. Some days were
Yeah.
great, some days were difficult. More than that, it was like each day was up and down. High moments, yay, this was a success, no feedback, they loved it. The next one, ugh, I never freaking got that shot and we moved on. I mean, we got it enough. So it was sort of a learning to ride this roller coaster, but knowing that I think there were people there who people there were there to help me succeed, and I didn't feel like I was tossed into a gauntlet of any kind. And again, like, them choosing me knowing that I was new, to me also said they know what they're getting. They know what they're potentially getting into, good and bad. And so, if I could just remain open and show that I mean, and this wasn't a very conscious thing, but I was like, I could remain teachable and I could remain somebody that was easy to communicate with. And I get along with people pretty well. I had a good rapport with everybody. And I think, um, having the familiarity with a lot of people on the crew and just being able to maintain my usual like camaraderie in addition to the next level of things that I was working on just made it more comfortable. And
That's
if
great.
if they were if I was gonna get fired, they were gonna it would have had, whatever. It's such an extreme thing to say, but it is like I felt like I was asking for feedback as much as I could get it, and they were giving feedback as much as they could give it in a non-exhausting way. And
Yeah.
so I felt like I was aware of how I was doing in everyone's eyes, and you
What
know,
was there actually, I should ask you, was this like a handheld show? Was this like a conventional show? I
heavily
mean,
really 50-50. It was hilarious when I did the interview, Alan was like, "We're very much dollies, wheels, traditional, slow, very little handheld."
yeah,
And
they
then
always say that.
and then, like, we had, like, an opening party, and he's like, "Actually, our showrunner would like to do a lot of handheld and whatever." And I was like, "Okay, great." So it was a healthy mixture of both, which was also really, really great.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
one of the other great things that Alan did was sort of insisted that anytime we were on a dolly, he's like, "Throw the wheels on. Just put them on all the time." And unless it's clearly a shot that, you know, you need a fluid head for. But so he kinda I think he was our first DP, so this is why I'm referencing him so much. But yeah, he kinda put me through a training process. He was telling me all the things that he went through when he was just starting, and I did it this way, and here, let's try it. And would love to tell me stories about all of his experiences and things, and so and this was part of that. So here,
That's so great.
do it this way as much as possible, and yeah. And sometimes I'd be on a certain setup, and he'd be like, "No, no, no, don't do it that way. Do it this way." It was again this moment where I was just like, "Okay, great, you know better. Let's give this a whirl."
Did you go, beforehand and practice on the wheels, like, at a rental house or something, or had you been practicing over
I
time knowing you were gonna be good?
since the pandemic, I had one of those black tech wheel simulator
Okay.
things.
Yeah, yeah,
So I've been using that for several years now. And then when I got this job, I definitely spent I had a month before the job began, actually
okay.
kind of around when you and I spoke, I think. And I would just listen to podcasts and do the wheels um so I tried to warm up as best as I could,
Yeah.
and I figured I'm doing everything I can possibly do. I read a couple of looked over a couple of books, I listened to your podcast. I did like a cram session of whatever I thought might be able to help me, and in the end, it's yes, doing the wheels practice was probably the most technically valuable thing that I could have done.
Do you can you think back and I mean, was there, like, one thing or 1 or 2 things or whatever that you thought before going into operating were gonna be your biggest hurdles? And then I wonder, were they or were there other things? Or can you not even is that too is that not a fair question?
No, I'm trying to remember if we stated anything, but I think honestly, some of my, like, private biggest worries were I'm not gonna remember everybody's name. I'm not gonna I'm gonna mix up the stand-ins and the actors. I'm gonna you know, it was mostly about just, like, the things that I see seasoned professionals do very easily, like, the first AD on set that just knows everybody's name on day 3,
Uh-huh.
I'm always just like, "Oh god, I don't know if I'm gonna do that." And sure
Wait a
enough,
minute, how
yes.
did you and I work together? Because I can't remember anybody's name either. Wasn't I constantly turning to
I
you?
don't know, John, you tell me. Um,
Exactly.
yeah,
That's smart.
I
I
mean,
love the
so
fact that that's your concern, though, and it makes so much sense.
but it was just
Um,
about I I wanted to just be as comfortable and as natural, and
yeah,
then everything else was gonna be the challenge that it was gonna be, and so, for me, I think my concerns were like, are people gonna trust me? Are people gonna listen when I ask for things?
yeah,
Um, in making this jump, have I earned it in a way? And I think I think people were incredibly respectful and generous and kind towards me, and that's why I was able to succeed. There are
yeah,
absolutely some times where I still would feel like, "Oh, shit, this isn't going well," and I don't know that that necessarily had to do with how much of a beginner I was, or just sometimes just set dynamics, but,
sure, sure. And
um,
how long was that? Was that, like, 3, 4 months, or how long was that
it
show?
was a 4 or 5-month show, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, the
And
other thing I remember telling you in that first podcast was I was worried about stand-ups, and,
I'm still worried about them,
correct,
so
and that's what you told me my answer would be. So, yes, still terrified, still tricky, whatever. Um,
did you use the gimmick of finding something on the back wall to go to just to, like
sometimes, yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes another piece of advice was just, like, watching the space in between their head and the top of the frame line and only looking at that,
Yep.
and not their
Yeah.
head and the whole frame, um, and then it was also interesting because throughout these last 2 jobs, like, on the note of, like, a stand-up, some DPs would like, "Don't interact with the cast, da da da, just you have to figure out how to do it in a way that you can always do it yourself no matter what." And
Yep.
then other DPs would be like, "No, no, no, tell them to slow down, tell them you're on a 180, and you just give them help." And it's just sort of so there was always a different opinion of, like, how might I smooth this out? Should I even attempt to smooth it out with an actor? It's like, ideally, you don't wanna have to talk to anybody about anything to be like, "Hey, I'm," 'cause, you don't want it to be like, "Hey, I'm incapable of doing my job. Can you help me?" But sometimes, as we all know in all the positions, and especially in this department, sometimes you need that a little bit, and there
Yeah.
are ways in which a tiny thing can really help. And then there's the actors who just know it, as you're well aware of. the actors who they're like they look at the lens. I got into the habit too of realizing which actors were sort of more keen to that, and I would just, flip the screen around and show them, or, with my hands around my own head, just indicate where we were so they could, and that gave them the option, if they had a clue about what I was referring to make an adjustment or whatever, and if yay, great, and if not, whatever. So, things like that. But in terms of, like, the concerns, I don't think I realized how exhausting it was gonna be mentally.
Everybody says that.
It's so much communication. I mean, and it's so much listening. And I'm not saying I didn't listen or communicate before, but it's on a very different plane with a very different group of people.
Mhm.
Um, all of a sudden, the 270 degrees in front of you is just, you have to constantly be listening to it, constantly be aware of all the changes. And I think remembering again, just I calling people's names out when you need things, da 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 da. It to me was there was even less time to go to the bathroom than there was when I was a
It
first. And
it's the hardest part of being an
that's sort
operator.
of like a metric, People are always like, "When do you pee?" And I was like, "Oh, maybe during a lighting setup, I don't know." It's like, you can't pee during the lighting setup.
No.
It's like maybe a rehearsal, or maybe, and it's like you wanna be at all the rehearsals unless they're like private rehearsal, So, I think that was also a surprise.
I think it's funny because so many people say that, and it always makes me feel better. Like, so I'll get home and I'll be completely exhausted. I'm like, I didn't do that much today, but I think that because there's so much that can destroy what you're trying to do, that even if you've got it all under control, you're still constantly going, "What am I missing?" Or
Yes.
did I pay attention to that? Or is that coming in? Or whatever.
Yeah.
So you don't turn off. It is that's interesting that you said that.
Yeah,
Was
and
so coming. Look, I've worked with you as an AC, and you're a fantastic AC, and you know your job really well, and you sort of, when I met you, you completely had what I call your set voice, which is just like, you just, I need this and we got to do that or whatever. I mean, however you say it, but
yeah,
there's a, I know what I'm doing or whatever. And I'm wondering, did that transfer to being an operator, or did you sort of like go back to sort of going, I'm not completely sure, so I'm not going to like call things out or whatever. And if that is the case, how long did it take to get back to that?
right. I mean, in communicating with the department, I don't think
Yeah, just
anything
like what
changed.
you need to have
No, no,
happen
no, I'm
because
just saying, yeah, I'm saying, like, communicating
yeah,
with, like, assistants and everything,
yeah,
I felt that didn't shift very much,
okay.
what I needed, whatever. I did find that, um I was also surprised at how much communication I didn't have with those people, like the assistants, the loader, like, I use because you're usually on a walkie and chatting all day, and I was surprised how cut off from the people I had been in a crew with for so long I felt. And then I was talking to directors, actors, set
Oh,
dressers,
interesting.
but,
Yeah.
it was wild to me that I was just like, "I have no idea what's going on in the department. I have no idea who's doing," it's like, 'cause I wasn't on a walkie with them, so
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's interesting. Okay, that makes a lot of
so that
sense.
was
Yeah.
sort of an interesting thing, but, I know what you're saying about set voice, though. I think I tried to do things in a little more, like, I guess, subdued fashion. I'm not one to yell across the set, I'm not one to yell in general, but, I think even like you are when you're a loader, you learn who you need to talk to get the things. Which PA has their shit together, who in the office has their shit together, what Teamster can hook you up. And I feel like, so I sort of started to find the people on set that were my go-to people for what I needed now, and that's my dolly grip, the set dresser, the ADs, the second AD who's setting background, um, my assistant every now and then, surprisingly less than anybody, the other operator, the other dolly grip, the and And then in addition to that, like, that's I'm just thinking of, like, shot setting up, and then once you're into, like, rehearsal and things, Yes, talking to actors, knowing when to interject and request, "Can you move to your left a little bit?" Like, I would always think something, and then there would be this hesitation of like, "Do I need to do that or can I get away with that?" And then another take would go by and I'd get boned again and I'd be like, "Okay, I'll say it now."
Yeah.
It's sort of like when you're even just doing something at home and you're like, "Oh, I know the right way to do it, but that would be the harder way." And, "Oh, shit, okay." And then you don't do it that way and you kinda get nipped in the bud. And certainly what I definitely learned on in these first 2 jobs I had were TV series is like, you don't have a lot of time. You don't have a lot of time to get it. You don't have a lot of time to perfect it and figure it out, even though that's a worthy part of your job, but it's just like, get it as soon as you can. And so that communication, I think, came out almost more of as a necessity to not mess up and to get it in 3 takes at least so you could
Yeah.
be asked to do something else or, um and then, you're asking people to perform work, which when I was heading the camera department, I was always like, I know we have to do this, but and this is what our crew does and yada yada yada. But there was always like there are also ways to do this that can minimize how many times somebody has to go to the truck or how heavy something is or whatever. And so now I'm contributing to the workload of other departments that I haven't so formally had to do in the past. And that was a little, some people are a little more gracious and giving in their work, and other people maybe make you feel like you're ruining their day because you're asking for something to be done that is in their job description. So, figuring out that and that changes on a day-to-day basis. What mood is somebody in? Uh, what are they being asked to do by their boss that might counter what I might be asking? So, like, finding the voice wasn't just about how to speak out loud, but it was also about like negotiating these new deals that I have to make, these new
Mhm.
arrangements, and and not taking it personally when somebody might sigh when you say, "Hey, I need 30 feet of track over there on that piece of dirt."
Yeah,
You know?
it's funny you say that because that's one of the things that I always, it's like I'll always look for the way that's a little easier to do something if it's being done as well. But if it can't be, it's a weird thing that you sometimes have to go, I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell you something now that's going to cause you to get 10 sticks of track off the truck that's
Yeah,
2 blocks away because someone didn't, or whatever.
yeah,
And you kind of have to be the person to ask people to do a lot of work. And
yeah. And I think
I,
the thing that was most frustrating for me in that way is that I was not used to putting those pieces together.
yeah.
And even though as a first, you're interacting with the dolly grip very heavily in terms of building the camera and setting it up, but in terms of like you're not around deciding where the track's going. You're at the cart putting a lens on at that time. And so I made a lot of mistakes and I made people do work that had to be undone. And I would ask for the dolly to be facing the wrong way. And there were times when, Alan would step in and catch it before, but he was also there to kind of let me make my own mistakes to learn. And I certainly wouldn't say I wasn't like my word is the last word. I would very much defer to my dolly grip, who had more time being a dolly grip than I had being an operator. And like, so I attempted to make it as collaborative as humanly possible because another thing that maybe later in my career, I'll be a little more insistent about certain things, or maybe even on the next job, be more insistent. But this, again, the beauty of this first job was that I could ask other people and not feel like it didn't mean I didn't know what I was doing. It just meant, hey, I'm here actively learning and let's do this together. And so, yeah,
Did you consciously early on have a conversation with your dolly group and just go, look, I've been around, sets for a long time, but I'm new to this.
we
If I'm
very much
going
knew,
down the
yeah, we
road.
very much knew each other. We'd worked
Oh,
together many times,
oh, great.
but
Okay.
not in that capacity.
Yeah.
And he was very, he knew that it was my first time, and um, yeah, I would I would defer and, you know, uh, open up questions as much as possible. Like, "Hey, here's the move. dance floor track. Here's this. What do you think? Do we
Yeah.
need the P we had 2 dollies as options, and it was just like, which one should we take for this? And, you know, um, things like that. I kept a little journal for the first, I'd say, 4 or 5 episodes, and it
Oh,
was like
wow.
every day the thing that kinda bit me in the ass that day. What was it? And I would write it in the book, and,
Did you find that things repeated, like the same thing was, or was always something different?
well, I would only write it down if it was different.
Oh, I see what you
Certainly things repeated, but I think what the cool thing was that at some point, I stopped writing things down in the book, and that's not because everything was perfect, but I think it was because I had gained enough traction where the lessons weren't as gigantic and as, um, debilitating or
That's great. Well, but that means
disruptive.
you were seeing progress, right? So, I
Yeah,
mean,
I
because 'cause
think
you're never
that's
gonna if you were
yeah,
to do that religiously, you're never ever gonna
no,
go, "I'm never
every
gonna
day.
write in the book
No.
again."
Yeah, and I stopped doing that, and it's funny, like, I don't know if I thought I was gonna, like, look back at it and read over it, but I never even looked back at it, but I had to put the things down so I could remember, and then,
That's a great
early
process.
on, I'd, like, glance at it, but then I was just like, "It's sinking in."
Yeah,
It's muscle memory, it's communication type muscle memory, it's just like, "Okay, here's the process. Here's how it
that
goes."
that's
Yada, yada, yada.
great.
So,
What was there a point in that first show that you did where you did something that you just completely it was a complete failure? And you don't have to share what it was. I'm just wondering. The reason I
mm,
ask is because as a new operator, when that happens, if it happens, uh, I'm just wondering how you mentally get back up and do the next shot.
I absolutely did, I'm sure. Uh, in terms of mentally getting up and doing the next shot, well,
And not and or mentally getting
yeah,
up and doing the next shot, you have to, but I'm saying and not
yeah.
letting it spin you out of control into,
I don't it I had definite moments where I would get frustrated and we didn't get the shot and as well as I would have liked it, apparently we got it enough for something or the piece that they would use out of my shot, our shot. And I think it was just some like I told you earlier, that roller coaster that was going on during the day.
yep,
Moments of great confidence and great everything's moving slowly, shots are working out, people are in the right places, you're doing the thing, you're in the flow with your dolly grip, and then there's moments where shit wouldn't work, and it was just I think I was talking to some other operators during that time too, and they're like, "That's just kinda how it goes. Some shots are great, some shots are better." And so I think, it is definitely like a mental game though, certainly starting out. Wondering if it's okay or are people just being nice to me because they're gonna fire me at the end of the day?
mhm.
Are they just being nice to me because they don't wanna, uh, you know, I can take suggestions and critique. Like I would prefer that to just somebody being like, "Oh, it's okay," like. And I feel like people actually did approach me kindly with productive and constructive critique. So,
That's great.
but what you're describing, absolutely experienced that and felt that 100%. And then I also had moments where I felt like things went exactly how I wish they would have gone, and they were
Yeah.
beautiful and wonderful, and, I was really proud of our work, and I had, um let me not forget to mention, I had a great focus puller with me, Ryan Bushman, and Ryan used to be, like, my PA and my loader and, like
Ryan's pulling focus now?
oh, for quite a while.
I didn't even know that. He's
For quite a
great.
while, yeah.
What a totally supportive person to have
Yes, and
with you.
I came in, and he, for the first couple of weeks would kinda not necessarily, like, whispering in my ear, but, like, I would there would be, like, the we'd have the rehearsal, Alan would say something to me, and then he would be like, "When Alan says that, he actually means this," or,
Oh,
"In
wow.
my experience." I mean, it wasn't, like, it wasn't in an annoying way at all, but he was
I
totally there to be like, "Hey, I've been doing this show the whole time.
Oh,
I
and
need" or
he's been on the
he's been
show.
on the show the whole
Oh, even
yeah.
better. Wow.
And then or he's just like, "This actor tends to do this," or
Oh,
he
jeez.
just he really gave me kind of the beta for the show, and it
That's
was like
fantastic.
and so
Yeah.
that also was critical to me just kinda having a slight leg up from an absolute beginner. I've never
Yeah.
been on the show before. Understanding the set, here's how this AD does this. Just
Invaluable.
yeah, super great.
Yeah.
So again,
Yeah. I remember when I came into ER, my assistant focus puller was Terrence Nightingale, who, I mean, is the reason that I was able to not get fired for a long time. But I remember, I'm not going to say who, but on the first day we were putting down marks, and he came up to me and he goes, "Just so you know, he will be nowhere near any single one of those marks." I was like, "Really?" And
yeah,
he goes, "Yeah, just those are suggestions to you and nothing more." And like he gave me the full rundown on everybody, and the same thing is it's amazing to have that.
yeah.
And also, by the way, for you to have someone like Ryan, who I'm sure, like, would come up and go, that wasn't that bad. We're going to get the next one, or, whatever. I mean, he's just such a supportive person.
He'd be very realistic about our work,
Mm.
and he would be very excited when we did something well, and
That's
quite
great.
frankly, he the fact that he is such a good focus puller meant that even if I messed up a little, the shot was still wonderful because he was making good choices and, like, so to have and he was just fast to build, quick to get it on the dolly, as
Yeah,
much time as I could have with the camera, I had. He and
great.
we had, Oscar and Ryan were the seconds, and they, just took good care of me, and, it made me really reflect back to, like, when I was a first and I was like, "Gosh, was I this supportive? Was I looking out like this? Like, shit, did I" It was, yeah, again,
That,
another key part of
that's
it.
great.
Yeah.
So that was 4 or 5 months, and then you went straight into another show, right?
I did, I had worked on, a show called Dark Winds as
Oh,
the A first for seasons 1 and 2,
uh-huh.
and then I left season 3 to do a feature instead, um, and I while on set for The Cleaning Lady, which is the show that I was on, first, my phone rang, and it was a DP from that show saying, "Hey, there might be an opportunity for us to work together on this. Just wanna give you a heads up and see your calendar and all that," and it ended up working out,
That's
and
great.
incredibly great. I mean, I to have moved up in this work climate and to be able to go from one job to the next, I was like, "Well, this is a freaking fluke."
Yeah.
And I was really happy about that. And again, a show that I'd worked on for many years, knew the cast very well, knew the crew very well. I felt like I was welcomed back and, like, taken care of in a very similar way that on The Cleaning Lady, but instead this was a show that I'd actually been on,
So
and,
so
it
when
was
you
great.
when you went into that, now your second show as an operator, and also it sounds like not too big of a gap in between. So it's not like you got kind of rusty in between.
4 days.
There's
Yeah.
no gap in between.
No.
Um,
Unpack, repack.
did you walk in there feeling like, I don't know how to do everything as an operator, but I can do this? Like, did you walk in with a lot less doubt?
Day 1 was a very different day 1.
Yeah.
You know? We were outside, which is one of my favorite things about that show. I prefer working outside in terms of just, like, choices and flexibility and
Yeah.
just I think it's a more interesting place to
There's more
be.
freedom, that's for
And
sure.
the show that
Usually.
I had just been on, we were on a lot of the same sets over and over, which is also something to learn from, but so it was just great. First thing we do is, like, a car driving up, parking, lady gets out, walks into a building. So great, you
Yeah,
know? And, um yeah, I mean, I think I got a few notes on camera placement to begin with, and it worked out, and I yeah, I mean, we did the first shot, we moved on, and I was just like, "Okay, alright."
that's great.
I mean, I didn't you always kinda want every shot to be like a banger anyway. When you have those ones and you're just like, "Oh, this felt great. I have no doubts, happy to move on," or whatever, and so the first shot wasn't exactly that, but it was like, "Fine, here we
Yeah,
are. The car has driven up and the person has gotten out.
yeah,
We'll get into the scene." Um So that was yeah, it was a
that's great.
definite it was a notable difference, and honestly, the rest of the show was notable in that way, um, because I wasn't, like, freshly getting into it, so it felt like a continuation of the last job, but just very different flavor, different people, different gear,
Uh-huh.
different crew, um, so that was just the adjustment there, was
That's
applying what
great.
I had learned as best as I could to this new group of people, and
Yeah, well, it seems like the first job you're coming in going, "Hey, I'm trying to be a B camera operator," and the second job you're probably starting going, "I am a B camera operator," and just I think mentally there's probably a huge difference just in how you see yourself, right, and
Yeah,
what you
eh
know your
yeah,
capabilities
it
are.
was an incredible difference.
That's great.
I was
And
yeah, I was
what
happy for it.
and timing wise, what a great ability to be able to have those two different experiences,
Yeah, I
within
think
such a short amount of
honestly,
time.
I mean, I was exhausted, but I think that was really an ideal way to do it, was just to hop right into another thing, and
And then yeah, and also but you prove it to yourself, right? You're like,
yeah,
"Okay, I'm with totally different people and I still can do this." I wanna ask you about that though, because you're working with 2, I'm assuming 2 different A camera operators, one
yes.
show to the next, right?
Mhm.
Um, with the first show with Brian, like, how did I mean, how did you figure out how to work with him as far as, whether you're pitching shots or you're waiting to hear about shots, or is the DP giving you like, did you just sort of wait to hear what they wanted you to do, or did you jump in or
Um, Usually, yes. I mean, this is a show that moves incredibly quickly. This is a show where sometimes 4 company moves a day,
oh,
and it seemed to me that both the DPs often showed up with, if not already a general plan, they were both very good at watching a rehearsal and being able to figure out how they wanted to do it right away. And a lot of times, actually, one of the things I was most impressed by and learned a lot about was just how they would watch a rehearsal and request some blocking adjustment, and it would cut out 3, 4 shots, "Let's not have them walk over there, let's just can we," and for there to be that flexibility with the director is huge, and I think that only happens in worlds probably where you're like, "Yeah, we're doing this show that we shoot an episode in 8 days, and we gotta cruise," and
yeah.
so, the way I kinda looked at it was, these guys have done the scouting, these guys have done the planning. I see what I see, but at the same time, like, Alan is literally there to do it the fastest way possible, and so I'm gonna defer to him and try to pay attention and to what that is. Anna was similar and just being like, "How about you try for this? How about you try for this?" And there would be times when there would sort of be a lull in them handing out an assignment, and that's when I would walk towards them and be like, "Hey, what about this?" or whatever. So I would only kinda wait. I would defer to the gap of time to be sort of an indication that there wasn't something immediate. And sometimes that was also like they want a light for the A camera and then they want to see maybe what's possible. And so I learned to just sort of wait and watch, which sometimes was incredibly frustrating because you're like, we're gonna have no time to set up. I'm not gonna get a rehearsal. Focus puller isn't gonna get a rehearsal, not that he needed one, but like, just sometimes being irritated that it couldn't be handed out earlier, but very much understanding why. And
Yeah.
so, and yeah, sometimes I would just go directly to the DP with a thought, just because Brian was heavily involved with a really complicated shot over here, and I didn't wanna be like, "Hey, Brian, what should I do?" So it made more sense to go to the DP in that moment, but, um, sometimes he would have suggestions and would toss them my way because 'cause it'd be something that he would see as well. Um, I would go to it was a mixture. It was
Yeah.
never the same way. Sometimes I wish it was the same way because then it would have been like, "Okay, I'm doing it, quote, unquote, correctly."
Yeah.
But I think it was probably different every time, every moment.
And then when you went to the second show, was it a different, I mean, did it work exactly the same or was it a different dynamic?
Completely different.
Of
One
course, that's
one
why I ask it
one
always.
D one DP wanted to assign shots, and if again, same idea there. He would start lighting, and sometimes we would just sit there, and my assistants would be like, we doing anything?" And I'd be like, I'm figuring that out, still waiting." And then, I would sort of saunter over there slowly and just be like, what do we think about this? What do you think about that?" And so the one DP, kinda had it in his head about how everything was gonna go, and I'm like, "Fine, great." Honestly, sometimes on certain days, even better. And then our other DP would kinda either he would vacillate between tossing out shots and then just kinda saying nothing to me at all, and just sort of assuming that I would find something.
Mhm.
And then when I would go to even just run it by him, he'd almost be, like, incredulous that I thought I had to run it by him. So, like, tons of independence with one of them, um, more like kind of curating with the other one. And so I found that to be educational, but also just like, Jesus, man, like,
Pick a lane.
yeah, yeah. And then, but I think I was talking to you about this just outside of this podcast, but just like that, I think became the most challenging thing for me is just be like, when do I chime in? When do I not chime in? Is it I'm not the A camera operator, so and I feel like when you're the A camera operator, it makes more sense to be like, let's, shape this way. And obviously, there's certain situations where it's very clear. There's like some inserts. There's a thing happening over there. I'm the long lens. They're the shot. The other way. It's just sometimes it's just very clear what we're gonna do. But there are some moments where you're just kind of sitting there in this limbo and nobody's talking to you, and you're just like, okay. Well, if I was a betting person, I think we're going to be doing this, but let me go clarify.
Yeah.
So it kind of turned into that, and I would sometimes also just on dark winds, I'd go to my dollar grip James and just be like, "What do you think, man? What do you see?" It's
Do
like
you
the,
see anything?
sometimes you get
Yeah.
a little exhausted of from think we were talking about like just be like, "Hey, what do you think?" And it wasn't just to take the weight off, but more of like a you might be seeing something I'm not, and but yeah, it's a healthy mixture of direction and no direction.
I know what you mean about you're sitting there and nothing has come your way, and the only thing that you're certain of is that time is passing, and that time is going to be needed, and that can be very frustrating. But like you said, sometimes if that's the situation, you just have to sit there and go, nope, this is what this is. It's not going to change,
Yeah,
and we'll all just be ready to jump the second that we're ready to jump. But that can be
yeah.
extremely frustrating. So you have two jobs under your belt now. What do you think if you had to make a list of the three things that you think you need to work on? What do you think they are?
Uh, as we were just talking about, sort of shot creation initiation,
Uh-huh.
maybe figuring out that dialogue with each DP sooner. I don't know if there's a way that you sort of establish like how do you like to do this? How would you like to do it? Or is that just like a dead giveaway of like, oh my gosh, she doesn't know what she's doing. Uh, so yeah, some shot initiation, thinking more about having more to offer in that way, but also it's often just also so dependent about how they want to work too. It's
Hmm.
interesting. That always just technical execution, just reliable technical execution, and then probably the big three, the big number three that stands out for me is just learning how to use the tools at my greater disposal, largely the grip department in terms of track placement, um, choosing equipment the first time, the right time. I mean, I've often found my way to the right thing, but that's no way to
Hmm.
do it. So there's also a lot of times where plenty of times where we chose the right gear the first time.
Sure.
So to me, that's also something that felt better on that second job was just knowing what I needed, knowing what would work, knowing what as best as I could at that moment, I should say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So just becoming better at knowing um, spatial spatial necessities of certain gear, heights of things, getting to know each dolly's capacity even more. I mean, I feel like we kind of exhausted that, but just being better at work. I mean, I think what's frustrating is I'm working in a world where nobody uses finders, and we didn't even have a physical finder on the first job I was on. And so for me to be able to, I mean, we use our Artemis probably more than anything, but
Hmm.
being better at like I feel like there was the expectation that you were gonna set a shot up as accurately as you would if you had the director and the DP with you in a finder and your dolly grip laying down marks, as there was to a bunch of just conversations happening in thin air that didn't use those tools and those physical landmarks. So to me, that was kind of frustrating because I definitely came up in a field of people who were very much like, let's look through the physical eyepiece, let's run the rehearsal, let's do it right, and I'm not saying this is wrong, but it's just the way that this business
Yeah.
can often move. So
Yeah.
to me,
Not
be
everybody is the Coen brothers and Roger Deakins, so
oh, you read into that?
just a little
And,
bit. But yeah, no, but
but many
it's a
people,
really good handicap to have, but it is a handicap to have had to have been on shows where there was the luxury of time and the luxury of
yeah.
people knowing really what they wanted,
So,
and
yeah,
I
it's
mean,
about
it's a different, and TV especially, it's a
yeah.
different thing. So you
So
got to know how to do
to
both.
be able to better place a camera and equipment that is heavy and gonna take a bunch of time with knowing less and less information, so it's like, again, yes, I can sit there and whine that it's not this way, but otherwise just getting a little better at doing it with less information.
And even if you get better at those things, that doesn't mean that when you get on that show with the viewfinder and the time and the whatever, that doesn't mean that that hurts you in any way. It's you're still better, but it just
Yeah,
means that when you don't have any time and the sun is going down on that show, or the the train is coming around the corner and they want to grab a shot of it, you'll make the right choice at that
yeah.
point. So it has value for both of them.
One thing, though, about not having a physical finder and using that regularly, though, is that it does encourage you to learn your lenses. Sure, you'll
Yeah.
glance at the Artemis every now and then, but I think, we were also being encouraged to just learn lenses, being able to call them without needing a finder, and that becomes really valuable and can quicken things up sometimes, and then you go to the next job, and it's different camera, different sensor, different lenses, and so you kinda have to readjust each time, so, also a learning tool sometimes to not have a tool.
Um,
And it's just totally the wild card too of an ensemble cast and a scene with 10 people in it and getting blocked, and it's just like, I think there's so many times when some of the best things we did were very lucky, and then there were things you'd set up and you think you'd sorted it all out, and you just get boned by this fucking lampshade or a you know,
yeah.
it was very humbling to think that you could manage all these moving parts and make it all perfect,
Yeah.
so to speak. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, but
That's great.
those would be the
And
2
I
things.
asked you this earlier, but I'm not sure if you said it. Was there something that you thought was gonna be a bigger problem that wasn't? Like, that you realized, "Why was I so worried about this?" It's actually not, or was there not that?
I would say I got a solid B plus on remembering people's names. I
Okay.
wouldn't mind if that was an A minus or an A plus.
Alright, but you got there. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, sometimes I couldn't even remember my dolly grip's name or, you just mix names up all the time and,
Right there with you.
something that was hard that ended up not being.
It's okay if you don't. I
Yeah.
mean, I just
I
was
think
wondering.
no, nothing
Yeah.
really stands out. I think there were consistent, gradual, lovely challenges that were all very educational.
Did you feel that after playing focused on such a level and for such a long time that you were able to completely, like, let go of that and let Ryan do his thing? Like, "I don't care, you do what you get." Yeah, oh, that's great. 'Cause,
100%. Oh,
well, the
no,
reason I ask is
there's no
I know
brain space for that.
no, but I know people who have made the jump before who sometimes will, like, almost, this isn't the right word, but it's almost like hide back in that because that's their comfort zone,
Ah,
and be like, "Oh, no, put the thing this way and you gotta put it up this way," because that, while they're figuring something out or whatever.
I
So
mean,
you
I'm
much
definitely the
different.
operator who's sitting there touching the camera a lot. Like, I still love that it's this
Yes.
object and it's
Sure.
fun, I'm arranging things, but it was, um no, was I mean, certainly there's sometimes where there's conversations that need to be had because I wouldn't agree with the focus pull not necessarily with just Ryan, but, like,
You mean choices?
there's things
Oh,
to
yeah,
talk about with
that's
choices, and it's
sure.
also, like, give them some options, and,
Mhm.
I found that it also was my job as an operator who had been a first to know the struggles of the person and to sometimes try to help with that or box out a little bit for them if they needed more time or another take or something or um but I didn't I as you mentioned, I think when we first spoke, it's kind of incredible how quickly that all goes away.
Yeah. That's great.
There's not the brain space to deal with it.
That's what I always thought.
Yeah.
But I do know some people who can't let it go, so that's why I asked. Well, I can't wait to work with you at some point again, as an operator, because I'm sure, I'm sure you're only gonna continue to progress. So you probably start getting bigger jobs than I'm allowed to do. But
I highly doubt
remember my
that.
name when you get them, okay?
I highly doubt that, Dave.
um, but I really appreciate like you being so introspective about this because it's not the easiest thing to always do after the fact,
Yeah.
and to be
It's
realistic about
yeah,
it because it's a huge jump
yeah.
as you've found.
I know there's a lot of sort of hemming and hawing about this whole experience, but I really did enjoy it. Like,
Great.
it's I really love it. It's so much fun, and I felt like, um I felt happy to be there, I felt glad to be there, and I felt like I deserved to be there, which was really a great feeling, and I have a lot of work ahead of me, I have a lot of things I need to learn, but I think I was also just excited to be in a position where there was, again, a bigger learning curve. I think I was, um, not necessarily getting bored with focus pulling, but you know how it is when you're in a groove, and so it was a joy to be a beginner again, I think is what I'm trying to say,
Yeah,
and, yeah, I really enjoy it, and I
that's great.
really it's also such a great vantage point to watch everybody else doing their jobs. It's so cool,
Mhm.
and I think, that was another great part of it. You know, as a focus puller, your head's buried in a monitor these days now, and it was so nice to broaden my view and look out and just be like, "Oh my god, this is pretty cool what everybody's doing," or, "Oh my god, this is so fucked up what everybody's doing," or,
Where
you
did all
know,
these people come from?
"Ooh, wait a minute, a human?" Yeah,
Exactly.
no,
Um,
so just
that's great. No,
and
I love that. It's
yeah,
fantastic.
and I'm
Yeah,
just grateful to everybody who's been supportive because
yeah.
I would not be here without other people's
Well,
support.
also, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this, but you mentioned in the first podcast, you're in New Mexico, and it's a little bit of a smaller community, and I'm sure I think you probably know most of the people there, and I'm sure one of the great things is everybody there. I'm imagining, but I think I'm probably correct. Just wanted you to succeed. So, you really had two great opportunities there. I would say the only other thing that could be thrown in there that would make it better is if you when you get called in to replace someone that everybody hates, you can kind of do anything you want. That's the best job.
Oh my god.
No, but I mean, just
Hey.
like when someone gets fired and nobody liked that person, and you come in, everybody's like, "Oh, this is
What
fantastic." Those are the best jobs in the world to get because you can be like, "Yeah, I'm going to chew gum through this whole scene," and everybody say, "Yeah, we don't care. That's
oh
fine."
my god.
Yeah,
Hilarious.
but no, it sounds like you had just I mean, really, really great. Uh, uh, great opportunities where you could just you were able to just concentrate on the things that you need to concentrate on as an operator, which are numerous in and of themselves, as opposed to going, I don't know any of these people, and these people
Yeah.
think everybody thinks I don't know what I'm doing, and all the other things that come with starting to operate.
It was clutch, really,
It's
for me to
fantastic.
just be able to ask yeah, to just be
Yeah,
able to know everybody was
yeah.
incredibly comforting.
Great. Well,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you to take us out with the thing that I ask everybody, but maybe more specifically on this one is advice for someone who's going on to their first gig as an operator, since you've relatively recently done that. On either maybe on how to succeed, or maybe better yet, on how not to fail.
Um, if there's a world in which you can do some research, like I said, I watched 3 seasons of the show, which was a lot, my god, just to get the feel of the show, to get familiar with the characters' names, to get familiar with the conflicts and the dynamics that exist just in the scripts. Um, familiarize yourself with as much as you can in that way. And ideally, you're working with a few people that you know and use, court those relationships and feed those relationships because those are the people until you meet other people that are going to be looking out for you and you can look out for them. And um, as always, just like being kind, being communicative, listening, um, and not being afraid to ask questions, not being afraid to look like you don't know what you're doing. People know they've hired you and it's your first job. You've made it very clear, and they're still taking a chance on you. Congratulations. Um, be just be like I just was talking about, kind of the whole beginner's mind thing. Like I really found some freedom in that, which I am a bit of a control freak as a person, I will admit. And so to have this place where I could um, fail and not know what I was doing and just be like, this is where I'm at. And to not have that add to any already existing natural stress was huge. So, and then when you, similar to what I've said about being a camera assistant, like I trust people when they ask me questions that they don't know things about, because then I know that they will eventually, they're learning from me instead of just them faking their way through something. So for me to go up to the A operator or mostly the A operator, honestly, and just be like, "Hey, what should I need to do this. What would you recommend?" And then for the most part, with my experience, the A operator enjoys imparting that advice and enjoys helping you out and wants you to succeed. And so still um, know that you're a beginner, but like also use that to your advantage in a way. Keep asking questions, because there's going to become a time when it's not appropriate for you to go up to the DP and be like, "Hey, what do you think?" Or it may not be the most reasonable thing. So yeah, that's my thought.
I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. We'll be back soon with another great episode. Don't forget to check us out on theop.io for all sorts of information on operating and storytelling. So thanks for listening and have a great day.